Well, let's turn our attention to Ukraine now. Russia has launched another overnight attack on Ukraine's power stations. Our military analyst, Sean Bell, is here. Hello again to you. Happy Good Friday. Tell us about these latest strikes in Ukraine, Sean.
Yeah, we've been reporting about successive waves of strikes over the last few weeks, and they've just been increasing in intensity. Last night, 58 drones, 26 cruise missile attacks against Ukraine. Last night, the Russian focus seemed to be on the Ukrainian fuel and energy infrastructure from the all the way. Well, yes, but this time it was very specific. Dnipro, Poltava in the east, Ivano-Frankivsk in the west, and it was 3 thermal power stations that seemed to be the main target of their attacks, which have sustained pretty serious damage. Now, the Russian strategy here appears to be they keep changing their target set, and what they're clearly trying to do is deluge the Ukrainian air defence systems, because as the Ukrainians are forced to try and use their air defence missiles to destroy the incoming drones and missiles, that reduces the supply of missiles and eventually makes them more vulnerable, and it's forcing a degree of decision-making from the Ukrainians. Do I protect our people? Do I protect the energy infrastructure? Do I protect the front line? And you can't do all of them. It's also interesting last night that in Romania, they found some remains of a Russian drone that landed there. That's important because Romania is a NATO country. And of course, it also follows that Poland actually scrambled its fighter jets last night as well. You remember a couple of days ago, one of the Russian missiles spent about 39 seconds, if I recall, in Polish airspace. So the fighter jets were launched again. And finally, the big thing that we saw earlier on was this video footage that's emerged of a Russian fighter jet that's incredible down.
Footage, isn't it?
It is amazing footage, just off Sevastopol, just down to the south of Crimea. Pretty dynamic footage. Now, at the time, it was thought they weren't quite sure whether what the cause was, but as a pilot who flew jets who had to eject out of a jet that was on fire, I can tell you that the way that's falling, that was being shot out of the sky, the flames and the fact that it's falling leaf syndrome on the way down, it's pretty clearly. So the pilot ejected apparently safely, but it's a pretty ignominious end to about $100 million worth of Russian aircraft.
What's it like, Sean, to eject out of a plane? I can't imagine.
It's a scary experience. I mean, it's a great dinner party story, but the shorter version, at the cockpit, you're trained to try and get everything right.
You've got 2.5 minutes. You don't have to make it a short
Fantastic.
We're here for this.
Most of your training is around emergencies. In your car, you probably have about 20, 25 warning lights. In the cockpit, we had about 150. But the main important ones are red, and the biggest one says fire. And that's the one, when something goes wrong, a generator goes on, loads of these lights light up. In my case, the engine stopped working, the Harrier doesn't glide very well, and it becomes pretty apparent, it will have been apparent to the pilot here, when actually you have no choice. The ground starts rushing up to meet you. When you're falling from 15,000 feet, as I was, it doesn't feel like you're moving very fast, but when you get below 5,000, the ground rushes up to meet you, and that moment, the one lingering moment, that pilot would have felt it as well, when you go, I have no choice now. If I don't get out, I'm going to be obliterated, and the moment you pull that handle remains with you for the rest of your life.
I was just going to say, that moment, your heart must be racing. You must have had dreams about that moment where you pulled the handle.
Absolutely, because it is that make or break. Luckily, we sit on very expensive but very capable Martin-Bacon ejection seats. They cost up to £2 million a time. But trust me, the day you use them, but you go from a comfortable cockpit, suddenly a most enormous explosion, 25 G of explosion punches you up the rails, then it lights a rocket pack, that takes you further out, so you're crushed and all the way as you're going up. Within a second these days, you're deployed underneath the parachute. It's an incredibly complex arrangement, and you're now in 300 mile an hour of airspace, swinging down below the parachute, looking up, going, what was that all about? But eventually, as you hit the ground, you imagine you hit the ground nice and steadily, the James Bond look. It's not like that at all. You hit the ground as if you were jumping off the top of a double-decker bus. Oh. So you hit the ground pretty hard.
Your back must still know about it.
Yeah, although I managed to get flying within 2 weeks, mainly because in those days, we were always a bit suspicious about the doctors because they would ground you. And my doctor used to play squash against me, and he said, well, if you can beat me at squash still, you're clearly fit to fly. I took a couple of paracetamols, I beat him still on the squash court, and I was allowed to fly again.
I was saying last hour, you're made of stern stuff.
No,
Sean
it was
Bell.
just an absolute appeal, just determined to get back in that cockpit.
And that seat that you ejected in, it has a number, doesn't it? And that number is forever attached to you somehow.
Yeah, so my number is 4,428. So there have been that many ejections up to my point. Today, they're into the 7,700s, and it just gives you an indication of how many lives have been saved by, in this country, don't hear much about it, Martin Baker, but that company, I went to visit them afterwards to say thank you, because your life was saved by one seat in the cockpit, and that's to this day. It's a fantastic escape system. It's a hairy ride when you're in it, but my goodness, it saves your life. It's fantastic.
And do you still have dreams about it?
No, interestingly, as soon as they get back in the cockpit after 2 weeks, the first time you look around the cockpit and think, last time I was here, I was vacating it rather quickly, but after that, never a passing thought.
I can't even imagine. But it's a huge piece of equipment, though, isn't it, that you know that you are driving?
Well, yeah, the funny bit was I was based in Germany at the time, and the admin folks put together a mock invoice for the jet and a payment scheme for me, because clearly, as I jumped out, it smashed on the ground.
That's why you're still working, doing Sky News appearances,
it's a big
isn't
bill.
it? Paying it off. All right, fascinating stuff, Sean. I stand in admiration. Thank you.